A 2,000-mile round trip of Egypt starts here, chaps. I'm giving myself 8 days to get around 8 cities that are amongst the most prominent, important, interesting ones in the country. A trip that would normally cost you billions and certainly take a lot longer than 8 days if you had any kind of self-respect for your own well-being or you liked sleep. But that's what I'm here for. And as a little side caveat, I'm going to do it for less than 400 quid, see if it's doable. But we'll get to the plan a little bit later on. For now, let me just tell you, if this one actually comes off, it's going to be a big one. But boys, it's been 2 years to the day to be exact, since I landed in Beirut in Lebanon, where I did a 2-week trip around Lebanon and Syria, which happened to be the last set of videos that I uploaded on this channel, the last solo mission that I went on to anywhere interesting. It seems fitting then that today is the day that I can officially, and I'm buzzing about this, officially announce I'm about. I am about. You're right, pal. So kicking this one off in Hurghada for 2 reasons, which I'll discuss in a second, and just for some reference, so you know where we are. Here it is on a map. It's along the Red Sea coast, and that is why it is, or was I should say, Egypt's premier tourist destination, with over 1 million people every year coming to have a look at its fish. Old town, aren't we? This is a part of the world that is incredibly rich in marine life. This is where there's loads of coral kicking about, there's loads of mad little sea creatures underwater, and that's why everyone comes on holiday. They come to go snorkeling or scuba diving or whatever it is, and have a look at what's about. But then it kind of had what can only be described as a bit of a shitter. And as much as I mention how good the marine life is, or apparently is, I just want to point out how difficult it is to actually get to the sea itself. It's all private beaches, it's all fenced off. Right, so look at this beach. Loads of yachts, dead fancy. However, I count literally 1 person on this beach. But between this fence, I count 2 dogs asleep. So yeah, more dogs than people on that one. Just look how blue it is. I don't mean the boat, I mean the sea. Right, have a look at this. We've got this bigger bridge thing going on. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's being held up by water bottles. What an absolute whip. Naming your shop after like Lamborghini or the Spice Girls or something. Now, I can't say that I get it, but whatever. But when you start impersonating Aldi, I think that's about where I draw the line. So to start from the beginning about Hurghada, you know how everything in Egypt is 1 trillion years old and absolutely pivotal to the development of human civilization, etc. Well, it seems like that's the case everywhere except here. There's literally no records of this place existing before the 20th century. Some of the first records, about 1906, say there were 6 houses here, 6. It was just a little fishing village that just somehow went unnoticed in the entire civilization of Egypt. No one ever stumbled across it, so a handful of people lived here. In 1909, the Brits show up, you know, asking a few simple questions like, don't suppose you guys have seen any oil around here, have you? Which of course there was, and so things started moving around then. Sorry, just taking a break a sec to admire how stunning this marina is. Fat pirate boat, fat mosque. What more could you need? Anyway, after the Brits first show their faces, not too much really goes on in terms of building the town until after the Second World War. The first hotel that went up in Hurghada was this bad boy, the Old Sheraton Hotel. This went up in 1963. That's how late Hurghada joined the party. And then 1980 is when things really started booming. That's when the population got up to a whopping 12,000, which is nothing compared to what it is now. In 2014, the population rose to 250,000. And I'm having a little bit of an aneurysm here because it's just dawned on me that 1980 was actually 42 years ago. And I'm sure in my head, 1980 is about 20 years ago. So I don't know, I'm getting old, boys. Anyway, so about a century after the Brits first have a look around, tourism's going well, everything's booming. It's gone from 6 houses to 250,000 people. Everything's going quite swimmingly, like literally swimmingly, because scuba diving and whatever. Anyway, and yeah, progress happened, everything's going well, and then 2016 happened. 2016 was a bad year for Egypt. Basically what happened here in Hurghada was some bloke, well, some knob, swam from a public beach to a private beach, one of those fenced off ones. They just started stabbing people, killed a couple of tourists, and obviously that sways public opinion a little bit, and people stopped wanting to come to a place where some amphibious maniac is going to try and kill you. So tourism from 2016 takes a bit of a hit. The thing is, incidents like that don't leave a permanent stain on a place. They, after a year, people start to realise, okay, that was a one-off. It was just one idiot. It's not a frequent thing. It's never going to happen again. Whatever. So the next year, 2017, people start coming back again. Until the exact same attack happens in the exact same city in 2017, and 2 years on the bounce. It doesn't look great at that point. When something like that happens twice, though, it's not only not great for Hurghada, it's just not very good for any of Egypt. So now, for a country that depends heavily on tourism, the fact that tourists no longer see it as a place they want to go has quite a disastrous effect. And it's fixable. It just takes a couple more years this time. Let's say it takes 3 years from 2017 to fix this public trust. Problem there is 2020. Travelling's banned, so it's not been a great 5 or 6 years for Egypt. So when I say Hurghada had a bit of a shitter in 2016, that's kind of what I meant. Anyway, I don't mean to speak too flippantly about the whole thing. I don't think I need to explain actually how serious that matter is. It's just that, the timing really wasn't very good. But the good thing is that travelling is now back on the agenda, and everything, as you can probably see, it's still quite quiet here, but they're rebuilding it. They're using this time to repave things and build some new structures and stuff ready for more tourism, so it's going to bounce back and everything's going to be mint again. It's just not had a great few years. Anyway, as you can see behind me, we have found a mosque. This is called Almina Mosque, and I believe it means the boat in Arabic, and I think that would be fitting given that it's near the marina. It's kind of a branny. It was only built in 2012. It has been a painfully long time since I've been able to marvel at something as grandiose and spectacular as a giant mosque. It's good to be back, chaps. It's really good to be back. Look at these rims. This is a bit of a weird one, but I think it's raining in Egypt. Yep, I can confirm I am getting wet from the sky, and it's still sunny. Not really sure what's going on here. This bad boy here, another thing that we can't get into, is the Qatari Mosque. Starting to feel somewhat like the attractions that you come to Hurghada to see are actually closed off to you anyway. But we can admire from a distance. But at least there is stuff to see if you intend on remaining a land mammal when you're in Hurghada. But there's no getting around the fact that pretty much everybody who's coming to Hurghada is coming because they want to be submerged one way or another. And yet, obviously, the marine stuff is not the reason I chose to come here. And I guess that takes me, finally, back to the point I started making about 3 hours ago when I was talking about the 2 reasons why I chose Hurghada to start this trip at. Soz, I'm just hiding in this building site while I'm trying to avoid getting wet. And also trying to work out why on earth or how it's raining. Don't really know what's going on here, chaps. So the biggest motive, obviously, is the cost, because it's cost me 55 quid return to get to Hurghada and then to get back from where I'm flying out from, which we'll discuss later in the plan. Whereas flying to Cairo or Alexandria or even Luxor or something is in the hundreds, so obviously that's the biggest motive. But also it's a really good place to start this kind of loop that I'm doing, and when we have a sit down and talk about the trip and the route I'm taking, it'll start to make some more sense. But yeah, not here to put myself voluntarily at risk of being eaten by something seaborne, here because it's a good vantage point to catapult myself onto this massive loop of this massive country that for some reason I'm undertaking in a ridiculously short space of time. Just getting into the El Daha centre bit of the town where most of the expansion happened, and big swanky mural thing kicking off over here. Of course there's a cat that's claimed it. But yeah, this is El Daha. This is where everyone pretty much lives who actually lives in Hurghada. This is kind of what I was after, this kind of dusty chaos. I don't know what it is, but it's a good vibe when a city's like this. This bad boy is El Daha Mosque, another branny. This one's still under construction, and when it's done, it's going to be the biggest one in this part of the city. There we go. This is what I'm here for, boys. Hey, we've made it, chaps. Just to balance things out, here's the big Christian Orthodox Coptic church of Saint Chenouda. I always think it's good to find a Christian relic or two in these parts, and not forget that, just given the timeline of how religions came about, there would have been Christians in this region long before Islam even existed in the 7th century. I mean, yeah, there really aren't any Christians left in this area anymore, and obviously this church was not built back then either, but still, just a big old structure, well, big not old structure to feast one's eyes upon. And got another one here. This is the Abdul Monume Riyad Mosque, and as you've probably heard me say 1,000 times before, I really just can't get enough of religious architecture. I think it's all absolutely mint. All got a little bit breezy out there, a bit cold, feet are not used to all this, so I've retreated to my accommodation. But this is a good time for us to go through the plan that I promised you earlier. So I'm going to try and take you through this on a map. I'm not going to bother with costs yet. If you're interested in knowing what the costs are, like I said, I'm going to do this very cheaply for a few grand less than you would pay normally. It's not an expensive trip to do as long as you plan it right. If you're interested, let me know, I'll let you know the costs. But for now, I'm just going to show you the route. So we're starting over here in Hurghada. Now tomorrow morning, I'm going to get a 192 mile bus to Luxor. Spend the day in Luxor, and the following day move straight on to Aswan, 149 miles on the train. Following day, go to Abu Simbel, which is right at the bottom of Egypt, really close to the Sudanese border, and then all the way back to Aswan. That's 179 miles each way. Then we go 539 miles all the way up to Cairo. Then the following day, go to Alexandria, 136 miles, then an overnight bus, 460 miles to Sharm el-Sheikh, and then 128 miles each way to get to St. Catherine and do a bit of climbing activity, which takes our round trip total to 2,090 miles. If I make it that far. Like I said earlier, if I do make it, and I'm fairly confident. I mean, I've got quite old in the past 2 years. We'll see if I'm still made of the right stuff to cope with it. But anyway, if we do pull that off, like I was saying, it's going to be absolutely sensational. So fingers crossed, and we continue on tomorrow. So yeah, keep them peeled. I'm about. We go again in the morning. We're going to go see some Egyptian stuff, see what all the fuss is about, and yeah, catch you in the next one, chaps. See you in a bit.